Admiral Vexthal floated in the command chamber of his massive warship, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on his viewing screen. The third world of this small solar system looked peaceful from space. White clouds moved slowly across its surface, and two small moons circled it like tiny guards. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," called out his communications officer from across the bridge. The officer's forearms moved quickly over his control panel, his silver skin gleaming under the ship's lights. Vexthal turned his large head toward the officer. His red eyes narrowed as he listened to the message coming through the ship's speakers. The words were spoken in Galactic Standard, but the accent was strange and the grammar was wrong. "Turn back. This world protected. You have been warned." The message repeated over and over again. Vexthal's mouth curved into what might have been a smile on his alien face. He had heard thousands of such warnings before, from dozens of worlds across the galaxy. They all said the same thing in the end. They all begged for mercy when his ships arrived. "Where is this signal coming from?" Vexthal asked, his voice deep and commanding. "From a small satellite orbiting the planet, sir," replied the communications officer. "It appears to be very old technology. Chemical fuel systems, basic metal construction. Nothing that should concern our fleet." Vexthal walked to the large window at the front of his ship. Outside, he could see the rest of his fleet. 50 massive warships, each one capable of destroying entire cities. Behind them followed the transport ships, ready to carry away whatever resources this new world might offer. "What do we know about the inhabitants?" he asked his science officer. The science officer, a tall being with blue skin and no hair, consulted his datapad. "They call themselves humans, sir. Our long-range scans show they have barely left their home world. They have a few small stations in orbit and some primitive bases on their moon, but nothing more. Their weapons are chemical-based, with some early nuclear technology. They should pose no threat to our shields." Vexthal nodded slowly. This would be easier than their last conquest. The Zephyrians had at least put up a decent fight before surrendering. These humans seemed to have nothing but old rockets and simple explosives. Far below on Earth's surface, in a deep underground bunker beneath what had once been Sol, General Kim studied the same alien fleet through his monitors. The screens around him showed dozens of different views of the approaching ships. Some came from satellites hidden among the space debris around Earth. Others came from the secret observation posts his people had built on the dark side of the moon. "Sir, they are not responding to the beacon," reported Colonel Lee, a woman with short black hair and tired eyes. She had been awake for 36 hours straight, preparing for this moment. Kim nodded without looking away from the screens. He was a thin man in his 50s, with gray hair and hands that had seen too many battles. "I did not think they would listen. They never do." The warning beacon had been broadcasting its message for 3 years now, ever since Earth scientists had first detected the signs of the approaching fleet. It was a simple message, recorded in several alien languages that human linguists had learned from intercepted communications across the galaxy. "Alert all stations," Kim said quietly. "Tell Major Park to begin Phase 1 preparations. It is time." Colonel Lee pressed several buttons on her control panel. Across the planet, hidden bases received the signal. In mountain caves and beneath ocean floors, in abandoned subway tunnels and inside fake buildings, thousands of soldiers began to move. The preparations had taken decades. Ever since humanity had first detected alien signals from deep space, they had known this day would come. They had studied every transmission, learned every language, and prepared for every possibility. "Sir, the alien commander is broadcasting to his fleet," reported Lieutenant Chang from his station. On the main screen, they could see Admiral Vexthal standing in his command chamber. His translated words filled the bunker. "Proceed with standard acquisition protocols," the alien admiral said. His voice sounded confident, almost bored. "Deploy landing forces to major population centers. Expect minimal resistance. This will be over before midday." The alien ships began to move faster toward Earth. Their sleek hulls reflected the light from Earth's sun as they prepared for battle. Smaller ships detached from the main fleet, ready to carry invasion forces down to the planet's surface. In his bunker, General Kim watched the aliens organize their attack. He had seen this same pattern in the recordings from other conquered worlds. The aliens always used the same tactics because those tactics had always worked before. "Sir, should we activate the defense grid now?" asked Colonel Lee. "Not yet," Kim replied. "Let them get closer. Let them think we are helpless." On his command ship, Admiral Vexthal felt pleased with himself. The humans had not even tried to fight back yet. No missiles had been launched at his fleet. No desperate radio messages begging for mercy. This would be the easiest conquest in Corthanian history. The first mistake had been made. Neither the alien admiral nor the human general knew that in the next few hours, everything would change. The Corthanian Empire was about to learn why some warnings should never be ignored, and why some planets should never be invaded. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The Corthanian dropships screamed through Earth's atmosphere like burning meteors. Lieutenant Commander Jektar gripped his plasma rifle tighter as his transport ship shook from the rough entry. Around him, 20 elite Corthanian soldiers sat in perfect silence, their silver armor gleaming under the red emergency lights. Jektar had led invasion forces on 12 different worlds. He knew what to expect. First, the primitive natives would fire their simple weapons at his ships. Then, when they saw how useless their attacks were, they would surrender. It always happened the same way. 30 seconds to landing zone, announced the pilot. Through the small windows, Jektar could see the burning remains of what the humans called Sol. His fleet had bombed the city for 2 hours, turning most of it into rubble and smoke. Remember your training, Jektar told his soldiers. The humans will likely throw down their weapons and beg for mercy when they see us. We will accept their surrender and move to the next objective. The transport ship landed hard in the middle of a destroyed street. Steam rose from the hot metal hull as the landing ramp lowered with a mechanical whine. Jektar stepped out first, his plasma rifle ready, scanning the ruins around them. The street was empty. Broken concrete and twisted metal lay everywhere. Smoke drifted between the collapsed buildings like gray ghosts. Everything was silent except for the distant sound of fires burning. Advance formation, Jektar ordered. His soldiers spread out behind him, moving carefully through the debris. Their sensors showed no immediate threats, but something felt wrong. The silence was too complete. Staff Sergeant Choi watched the aliens from his hiding spot inside a collapsed apartment building. He was a small man with quick eyes and steady hands. Behind him, 5 other human soldiers waited in the shadows, their faces painted black with soot. Choi had been fighting for his country for 15 years. He had seen war before, but nothing like this. The alien bombing had killed thousands of people in minutes. His own family lived somewhere in this city, but he did not know if they were still alive. Wait for my signal, Choi whispered to his soldiers. They carried simple weapons compared to the aliens. Assault rifles, grenades, and explosive charges that Choi had made himself from materials found in the ruins. The Corthanian soldiers moved down the street in perfect formation. Their silver armor made them easy targets, but Choi knew their shields would stop most human bullets. He would have to be clever. Movement detected, bearing 270, reported one of the alien soldiers. Jektar turned toward the broken building where Choi was hiding. Show yourselves, Jektar called out in badly pronounced human language. Surrender now and you will not be harmed. Choi smiled grimly. These aliens thought humans were like all the other species they had conquered. They were about to learn something new. Fire, Choi whispered. The first shots came from 3 directions at once. Choi and his soldiers had positioned themselves carefully, using the rubble as cover. Their bullets sparked off the alien shields, but that was not the real attack. Jektar's soldiers returned fire with their plasma weapons. The energy beams cut through concrete and metal like they were paper. But the humans did not run away. Instead, they kept shooting and moving closer. Sir, the humans are not retreating, reported one of Jektar's soldiers. They are advancing on our position. This was not normal behavior. Every other species had run when faced with superior Corthanian weapons. But these humans seemed to become more aggressive when they were shot at. Choi threw his first grenade, a simple human explosive that barely scratched the alien shields. But while the aliens were distracted by the blast, he ran forward with his assault rifle firing. 2 of his soldiers followed him, screaming like wild animals as they charged. A plasma beam caught Choi in the chest, burning through his body armor and flesh. The pain was beyond description, but Choi did not fall. Instead, he pulled the pins on his remaining grenades and kept running toward the alien soldiers. The human is still moving, shouted a Corthanian soldier in panic. It should be dead. Jektar watched in horror as the wounded human threw himself into the middle of his squad. The explosion killed Choi instantly, but it also destroyed the shields of 6 alien soldiers and wounded 4 more. These humans are defective, Jektar reported back to the fleet, his voice shaking. They fight even when mortally wounded. They show no self-preservation instincts. Similar scenes were playing out across the planet. In New York, Private Kim led a suicide attack against a Corthanian command post, using a truck full of explosives to destroy an entire alien squad. In London, Corporal Park used the city's source system to place bombs under alien vehicles, dying in the explosion that killed 12 invaders. Captain Han watched it all from her underground command bunker, buried deep beneath the mountains outside Seoul. The screens around her showed feeds from hidden cameras across the planet. Her soldiers were dying, but they were taking aliens with them. The enemy casualty reports are coming in, said Sergeant Yoon, a young woman who had volunteered for this assignment knowing she might never see her family again. Han nodded as she studied the numbers. The aliens had better weapons and armor, but humans had something the Corthanians had never encountered before. They had the desperate fury of a species fighting for its survival. They expected us to fight like civilized species, Han told Yoon. They're about to learn why that was their second mistake. The Corthanians were learning that superior technology meant nothing when facing an enemy that refused to give up. Major Kang sat in his control room deep beneath the Swiss mountains, watching the clock on his wall. 3 hours had passed since the alien ships had landed on Earth. 3 hours of letting the invaders think they were winning. His finger hovered over a large red button that would change everything. All stations report ready, said his aide, looking nervous. Around the room, dozens of technicians sat at their computers, waiting for the order that would reveal Earth's greatest secret. Kang pressed the button. Across the planet, things that had looked like ordinary buildings for decades suddenly came alive. The tall communication tower in downtown Tokyo split open like a flower, revealing a massive energy weapon inside. The weapon hummed with power as it turned toward the nearest Corthanian dropship. In London, what everyone thought was an old subway station opened its hidden doors. Rows of missiles rose from underground launchers that had been built 50 years ago and disguised as train tunnels. The missiles locked onto alien ships flying overhead. Even in space around Earth, pieces of what looked like old satellites and space junk suddenly activated. Solar panels unfolded, weapon systems came online, and targeting computers that had been sleeping for years woke up. The orbital debris that the aliens had ignored was actually a network of hidden defense platforms. Admiral Vexthal stood on his command ship, watching his tactical display with growing confusion. Red warning lights were appearing everywhere on his screen. His sensors were detecting energy signatures that should not exist on this primitive world. "Sir, we are receiving weapons lock warnings from the planet's surface," reported his tactical officer. "Multiple installations are targeting our ships." "That is impossible," Vexthal said. "Our intelligence reports showed no advanced weapons on this world." But even as he spoke, the first energy beam lanced up from Earth's surface. The communication tower in Tokyo fired its hidden weapon, striking a Corthanian transport ship. The alien vessel's shields flared and failed under the unexpected assault. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Shin worked in her secret laboratory. The facility had been built inside an underwater mountain, hidden from all alien sensors. Around her, teams of scientists monitored the battle through their advanced computers. "Phase 3 is active," she reported into her communication device. The beacon did its job. They committed their entire forward fleet. Dr. Shin was a small woman with gray hair, but her eyes held the wisdom of someone who had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. She had helped design many of the hidden weapons now revealing themselves across Earth. The plan had been simple but required incredible patience. Let the aliens think Earth was helpless. Let them bring their entire invasion force into the solar system. Then spring the trap when they were too committed to retreat. On his command ship, Vexthal watched in horror as more and more weapons appeared on his sensors. What he had thought was a quick conquest was turning into a nightmare. His ships were surrounded by hidden defenses that his scouts had somehow missed. "Sir, we are detecting missile launches from multiple locations," called out his weapons officer. "The humans have concealed launch sites throughout their major cities." Explosions began to light up the space around Earth as hidden missiles found their targets. Corthanian ships that had been confidently bombing the planet's surface suddenly found themselves under attack from weapons they had not known existed. Commander BAE crawled through the ventilation shaft of the captured Corthanian cruiser, her team following silently behind her. She was a tough woman with short black hair and scars on her hands from years of training for this exact mission. The alien ship had crashed in the mountains of Korea 3 days ago, damaged by one of the hidden defense weapons. While the aliens were busy with their invasion, BAE and her team had infiltrated the wreckage. "Remember," she whispered to Private Song, a young soldier who had volunteered for this dangerous assignment, "we are not here to drive them off. We are here to learn." BAE's team moved through the alien ship with practiced efficiency. They had trained for decades in mock-ups built from pieces of other alien ships that had crashed on Earth over the years. Every corridor, every door, every control system was familiar to them. They photographed everything they could find. Weapons systems, computer interfaces, engine designs, communication equipment. Most importantly, they captured alien computer cores that contained technical data about Corthanian technology. I found their navigation system," whispered Corporal Lim from across the ship. She was downloading star charts and fleet positions into a human data storage device. Private Song discovered something even more valuable in what appeared to be the ship's medical bay. Biological data about Corthanian physiology, including their weaknesses and how their bodies responded to different types of damage. Back in space, Admiral Vexthal realized the terrible truth. The crude warning beacon that had seemed so primitive was actually bait. It had been designed to make his forces underestimate the humans and commit their entire fleet to the invasion. "Sir, we are losing ships faster than we can count them," reported his tactical officer. "The humans have turned their entire planet into a weapons platform." More alien ships fell to the hidden defenses. Communication towers fired energy beams, subway tunnels launched missiles, and even ordinary-looking buildings revealed themselves to be camouflaged military installations. The Corthanians finally understood that Earth had not been unprepared for their invasion. The humans had been waiting for them, planning and building defenses for decades. Every piece of seemingly primitive technology had been a disguise for something much more dangerous. The trap had been sprung, and the hunters had become the hunted. Dr. Nam worked without sleep in her underground laboratory, surrounded by pieces of broken alien technology. Her team of scientists had been working for 18 hours straight, taking apart Corthanian weapons and equipment with desperate speed. "Hand me that plasma conduit," she called to her assistant, Dr. Moon. Around them, dozens of workbenches held alien devices that had been torn from crashed ships and captured equipment. Sparks flew as human tools met alien metal. Dr. Nam was a brilliant engineer who had spent most of her life studying theoretical alien technology. Now she had the real thing in front of her, and she was learning faster than she had ever thought possible. "Look at this," she said, holding up a piece of alien shielding material. "It responds to electrical signals. If we can connect it to our own power systems." Within 2 hours, Dr. Nam's team had created something that should have been impossible. They took the alien shield generator and connected it to a human missile. The result was a weapon that could penetrate Corthanian defenses because it used their own technology against them. "Test it," Dr. Nam ordered. Her team fired the hybrid missile at a piece of captured alien armor. The weapon passed right through the alien shield as if it was not even there. But Dr. Nam's laboratory was not the only place where humans were adapting alien technology. In medical facilities around the world, volunteer soldiers were undergoing procedures that would have horrified any civilized species. Lieutenant Ju lay on an operating table as human doctors worked to modify her body with alien bioenhancement technology. The procedure was dangerous and painful, but Ju had volunteered anyway. "Are you sure about this?" asked the surgeon, Dr. Park. "We have never tried this before. You could die." "I understand," Ju replied. "But if this works, I can attack their ships directly. No human has ever fought in space without a spacecraft before." The operation took 6 hours. Human surgeons used alien medical technology to change Ju's body so she could survive in the vacuum of space. They modified her lungs to hold more oxygen, strengthened her bones to handle pressure changes, and implanted alien devices that would protect her from radiation. When Ju woke up, she was no longer entirely human. She was something new, something that had never existed before. A living weapon designed to fight in conditions that would kill any normal person. "How do you feel?" asked Dr. Park. Ju flexed her hands, feeling the alien technology working inside her body. "I feel ready." 12 hours later, Ju floated in the darkness of space near a Corthanian destroyer. Her modified body allowed her to survive without a spacesuit, moving silently through the void like a ghost. In her hands, she carried explosives made from human and alien technology. A terrified Corthanian scout watched through his ship's sensors as Ju attached the explosives to their hull. "Sir, the humans are modifying themselves," he reported back to Admiral Vexthal, his voice shaking with fear. "They are using our own bioenhancement technology to survive in vacuum. They are attacking our ships directly." Vexthal could barely believe what he was hearing. No civilized species would modify their own bodies for warfare. It was considered barbaric, insane. But as he watched his tactical display, he saw more signals appearing around his ships. Dozens of modified humans were attacking his fleet in ways he had never imagined possible. Lieutenant Ju was not alone. Across the solar system, other volunteers had undergone similar modifications. Some could survive in the crushing pressure of deep ocean trenches to attack alien submarines. Others had been modified to withstand extreme heat so they could sabotage alien equipment in burning cities. Meanwhile, Colonel O ran a different kind of operation from her command center in the Australian outback. She was a specialist in psychological warfare, and she had been given a very unusual assignment. "Bring in the next prisoner," she told her aide, Sergeant Kim. The captured Corthanian soldier was brought into the interrogation room. He was tall and thin, with silver skin and large black eyes. Like all his species, he had been trained to expect certain types of questioning. But Colonel O was not interested in military information. She wanted to understand how the alien mind worked, what they feared most, and how to use that fear as a weapon. "They fight for conquest," she explained to her team of psychologists and linguists. "We fight for extinction. That is the difference." Over the next few hours, Colonel O learned that Corthanian society was built on order and predictability. They won wars by following proven tactics that had worked for thousands of years. But humans did not fight like any enemy they had faced before. "Use this information," Colonel O told her communication specialists. "Broadcast messages to their fleet. Tell them about our modifications, about our willingness to die, about how we turn everything into a weapon. Make them afraid of what they cannot understand." The psychological warfare began immediately. Human radio stations, taken over by Colonel O's team, started broadcasting to the alien fleet. They described the human volunteers who had modified their bodies, the civilians who had turned their homes into weapons, and the children who were being trained to fight with alien technology. The Corthanians found themselves facing an enemy that adapted faster than they could respond. Humans took alien weapons and made them better. They took alien defensive technology and turned it into offensive weapons. Most terrifying of all, they took alien biological enhancements and used them to transform themselves into something the Corthanians had never seen before. The war was no longer between two different species. It had become a battle between civilization and survival, between conquest and extinction. And the humans were winning. Admiral Vexthal stood in what had once been his own command center, his hands bound behind his back with restraints made from his own ship's materials. The bridge around him looked the same, but everything had changed. Human soldiers now operated the control stations, their faces painted with alien symbols they had learned to fear. Captain Lim walked slowly around the command center, studying each alien control panel with the cold focus of a scientist examining a new specimen. She was a small woman with sharp eyes, wearing a uniform that mixed human military design with pieces of Corthanian armor. "Your hyperdrive system is more advanced than we expected," she said to Vexthal, not looking at him as she spoke. "But not too advanced for us to understand." Vexthal watched in horror as human technicians dismantled his ship's most secret systems. These primitive beings were taking apart technology that had taken his people thousands of years to develop, and they were doing it in a matter of hours. "You were warned," Captain Lim said simply, finally turning to face the captured admiral. "The beacon was not meant to protect us from you. It was meant to protect you from us." The truth hit Vexthal like a physical blow. The crude warning message that his fleet had ignored had not been a desperate plea from a weak species. It had been a final attempt to save the Corthanian Empire from making a terrible mistake. On Earth's surface, General Kim stood before a massive screen in his underground command center. Around him, his officers watched as reports came in from across the planet. The invasion was over, but Kim's expression showed no joy, only grim determination. "The invasion has been repelled," he announced to his forces through communication channels that reached every hidden base on Earth. "But our work is not finished. We cannot allow this to happen again." Kim had spent 40 years preparing for this war. He had seen the intercepted messages from other worlds, watched the recordings of entire civilizations being destroyed by Corthanian forces. Earth would not suffer the same fate, and neither would any other world if he could help it. "Begin Phase 5, Kim ordered. His officers pressed buttons and sent signals that activated the final part of humanity's plan. The part that would change the galaxy forever. Commander Shin sat in the pilot seat of a ship that had not existed a week ago. Around her, the bridge combined human design with alien technology in ways that should have been impossible. Her crew worked at control stations that mixed human computers with Corthanian systems. "Hyperdrive is ready," reported her engineer, Lieutenant Yu. "All systems are green." Shin nodded as she looked at the star charts displayed on her screen. These were not human star charts showing the few nearby systems that Earth's telescopes could detect. These were Corthanian navigation maps showing the locations of hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. Behind Shin's ship, dozens of other vessels hung in space near Earth's moon. Each one was a hybrid creation, built from captured alien technology and human innovation. The ships looked like nothing that had ever existed before, combining the sleek designs of Corthanian engineering with the practical, weapon-heavy approach of human military thinking. "All ships report ready for departure," announced her communications officer. "Then let us go," Shin said quietly. "It is time the galaxy learned what happens when you threaten Earth." The human fleet activated their stolen hyperdrive systems and disappeared into the darkness between stars. They carried with them not just weapons and soldiers, but something far more dangerous. They carried the complete technological database of the Corthanian Empire, copied from captured ships and interrogated prisoners. Lieutenant Colonel Park worked in a communication center deep beneath the Himalaya Mountains, surrounded by the most powerful transmitters humanity had ever built. His mission was simple but terrifying. He was about to announce Earth's existence to every intelligent species in the galaxy. "Broadcasting on all known alien frequencies," reported his technician. Park pressed the transmission button, and his message began to travel across space at the speed of light. But it would also be carried by human ships using alien faster-than-light communication systems, reaching distant worlds in hours instead of years. "This is Earth," the message began. "We are the species you call humans. Your Corthanian Empire came to our world. They ignored our warnings. They have paid the price." The message continued, describing what had happened to the Corthanian invasion force. How humans had turned their entire planet into a weapon. How they had modified themselves to fight in impossible conditions. How they had captured alien technology and made it their own. "Earth remembers," the message concluded. "Earth retaliates. You have been warned." Across the galaxy, alien civilizations received the message with growing horror. The Corthanian Empire had been the most powerful military force in known space. If these humans had defeated them so completely, what did that mean for everyone else? On his captured flagship, Admiral Vexthal watched through the viewing screen as Earth grew smaller behind them. Captain Lim was taking his ship back to Corthanian space, but not as a returning conqueror. She was going there as the representative of Earth's new interstellar empire. "What will you do with my people?" Vexthal asked. Captain Lim did not answer immediately. She was studying a datapad that showed the locations of Corthanian colonies and military bases. Information that her interrogation teams had extracted from captured prisoners. "That depends," she said finally, "on whether they listen to warnings better than you did." The galaxy's newest and most dangerous spacefaring species had been born from the ashes of an invasion that should never have been attempted. Earth had tried to warn them, but the Corthanian Empire had not listened. Now it was too late for warnings. Now there would be only consequences.